Hi, and welcome to this episode of Conversation with a Chef. I'm Jo Rittey, and I love sharing with you the conversations I get to have with talented and passionate chefs. It's the backstory, if you will, to the food they're putting up. I begin today by acknowledging the Wurundjeri people of the Kulin Nation, traditional custodians of the lands and airways of Naarm, where this conversation takes place. Land which was never ceded. Land where communities came together to eat seasonally, locally, and without exhausting resources. I pay my respects to their elders past and present, and to any First Nations people listening today. Today I'm talking to Tom Jones-Davies. What a delight to sit down with Tom at Dock St Kilda. Tom grew up in Wales hunting rabbits with his dad and tweaking his mother's cooking when she left the room. He's a curious chef who never wants to stop learning, and whenever he has time on his hands, he'll be flicking through recipes and watching videos of cooking techniques. As executive chef of the Dock Group, he moves between the venues, overseeing creativity as well as getting on the pans. Tom has a passion for pasta, favouring lesser-known shapes, and I have to say, having tried his campanella with rabbit ragu, he definitely knows what he's doing. Tom is a great storyteller, and we actually kept talking for another 20 minutes after I stopped recording. If you haven't been to Dock St Kilda, you absolutely must go. Of course, there's Dock's incredible pizzas, but there's also the pasta, seafood, and a focaccia served with cacio e pepe butter that I cannot stop thinking about. And then there's the view out across the bay. Perfection. I think you'll enjoy this chat. I certainly did. How's your day been?
Hectic.
Yeah.
We've got a prep kitchen and the head chef is on holiday.
Oh,
so
okay.
I'm jumping in to cover for him.
Yeah, right.
So it's just all morning prepping.
Yeah. So you're executive chef, are you? So
Yeah.
over all of the venues?
Yes, I oversee less involved in the pizzerias because we have an executive pizza chef as well.
Okay.
Who's the head chef at Carlton. But I sort of help them with their creative side and then they do the rest.
Yeah, wow. How long have you been with the group?
So I've been with the group for about coming up to 2 years.
Oh yeah. Are you largely based here now?
I was just for the opening.
Yeah.
But I float between all the venues.
Oh, I see. Yeah.
So the idea is to do a couple of days in each venue.
Yeah.
Probably usually I'll do Fridays, Saturdays here, and then the other venues which have been running longer, so they're sort of a bit smoother sailing over there. So I'll spend weekdays there.
Yeah. And that's in the kitchen on the pans when you're there, or?
In the other places not so much. Here, yes.
Yeah.
The espresso kitchen is very small.
Okay.
So there's not enough space for me to be on the pans in there.
Yeah.
And, they've got the full team running over there. So when I'm there, it's more quality control, helping out with the paperwork and just making sure that the place is running smoothly.
Yeah. Wow. Okay. And so is the St Kilda one is a little bit different because you've got some extra items on the menu as well as the pizzas?
So St Kilda is different for us because it's a mix, all our venues are, it's the same as St Kilda but separated. So we've got pizzerias and then we've got espresso that does just pasta but no pizza.
Yeah.
So here is a bit of a blend of both, but with a couple of extra things like... we've got the fritto misto. In espresso, it is just pasta and antipasto. There's no real main courses. We don't have the kitchen for it there yet.
Yeah.
So here we've got a couple of, there's a steak on the menu. There's the fritto misto, a swordfish steak as well. So, we've got a better kitchen here that allows us to do a bit more.
Yeah, and it sounds like you had to do a bit of adjustment in that kitchen from the previous restaurant that was here. So that the oven the pizza oven had to go in piece by piece.
Pizza oven went in piece by piece. I didn't know how they were going to get it in, but it was the base, which is so heavy, was rolled in through the doors. Okay. And then the rest came in piece by piece over the counter. And we essentially had to shift. A lot of the equipment is new, but we essentially shifted the whole cook line down to the other end of the kitchen and put the pizza section at the end there.
Because it looks like a small kitchen, but it goes back, doesn't it?
It does. It is a small kitchen.
Yeah.
I think it's maybe not a small kitchen for most people if you look in. If we weren't doing the pizza, it would be more than enough.
Yeah.
But when it's a bit of an odd fit down the end because you're almost working back to back with the dishwasher if you're on the pan section.
Yeah.
Because they're very close to each other.
Yeah, they could.
And I think more from a like a prep space and storage, what you see is what you get here. So there's no other. We do have a storeroom which is about a 3-minute walk through the building.
Okay. Because it's an extensive menu. There's quite a lot going on, so I would imagine you would need extra space than just what I can see. Yeah.
It's luckily we just we prep. We try to keep everything fresh, so we do it sort of smaller amounts and more often. We don't have the space to prep up huge batches of stuff. Luckily we've got the prep kitchen as well, which takes the main issue that I found was trying to do the fresh pasta here because the pasta machines are quite bulky. And during the week it's okay because we're closed for lunch, but on the weekend when you're open for lunch, I can't really. There's no space in the kitchen, so I had a pasta trolley made up with all my pasta machines on it that we used to wheel through the storeroom over to here. But it meant that doing pasta became a really long job from going to the storeroom to get everything and bring it back. So I've moved those out to the prep kitchen.
Okay.
So we do all the fresh pasta from there and deliver it daily to here.
So I had I'm not going to say it right, the campanella.
Campanella, yeah.
Oh, that's almost right.
Not bad.
With the duck ragu.
Yeah.
So that's a frilly pasta. To get the frills, is there a special?
So the frills, that's an extruded pasta. So what's interesting about extruded pasta is when you look at the die, you can kind of figure out what it is from the shape on the outside of the die, but the main part is actually what's behind it. So it's not just a hole in that shape. There'll be channels on the back that push larger amounts of pasta on one side to the other. So that one is it's like a question mark shape cut out of the die, but it has it's got two holes on the other side, one being large and the other one being small. So that forces it around in that sort of frilly way. And I guess it's I don't know, I've tried to explain it to people, maybe like a trumpet-shaped pasta or something like that, like a frilly trumpet.
But it's perfect for holding the sauce from the ragu as well, isn't it? And the meat really really grips on, doesn't it? It's so delicious.
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah.
It's I've had campanella before, but never really. Not to say that nobody in Melbourne is doing it. I don't go and eat out every night in all new places, but it's not something that you see on menus quite regularly here. So and it's a shape that I have loved in the past. So I really wanted to get that die to do it.
Yeah, and then you've got some filled pasta as well.
So we've got the agnolotti. Yeah. So the agnolotti, different from the extruded pasta, is the extruded pasta is just water and semolina. So it's not an egg pasta.
Okay.
But that's so because it's extruded. Essentially, what you do is you mix it in the hopper, and they're very dry doughs, and the pressure pushes it together. Whereas egg pasta, that you can make egg-free pasta, which is like rolled, but it's a little bit harder to do. So that one we do egg yolk, so just egg yolks, semolina and flour. And it's with quite a classic filling from North Italy of roast. It was sort of roast, then braised rabbit, veal and pork.
Oh yeah, and I've got to come back to that, obviously. Yeah.
I said to people, for me, we did it is very classic, and we stick to the classic recipe. The only thing that's maybe not classic about the way that we do it here is I kind of take inspiration a bit from like the xiaolong bao. So usually what you do is you separate the jus, the braising liquids from the meat and mince the meat. I actually mince the jelly braising liquids back in, so the filling is super soft, and it's kind of got the jus that is on the outside is also mixed inside as well.
So so delicious. I was just speaking to McKay Wilday, who's at Alta Trattoria and then Enetica Zingara, and he was saying it's quite hard to get hold of rabbit nowadays. Cause
it is. So
why is
I'm
that?
not
I feel
sure.
like there's rabbits everywhere.
I don't know whether it's true.
Rabbit.
I'm pretty sure it was. I can't remember who told me. So from my understanding, there was one rabbit farm in Victoria.
Yeah.
And he closed down 2 months ago.
Yeah.
Which is when it started to get really difficult to get
and
it.
super expensive.
So what happened was the rabbits get so many diseases that they've got to inoculate them against them all. And it actually was more expensive to give all these rabbits these injections than it was to actually produce it. So he decided to close down, and there's only one rabbit farm left in Australia, which, if I'm not wrong, is in South Australia.
It seems crazy.
Yeah, it is. So now rabbit has gone up to, I think I can get it. We use Vix Meats as our supplier.
Right.
And Vix Meats stockpiled a load of rabbit before when they found out that it was happening. And they can get it, but it's now, it's upwards of $49 a kilo. I think a kilo or each, I can't remember, but it's just way more than it should be.
So, what do they do in other countries? Because, they eat a lot of rabbit in France. They just...
In the UK, I think a lot of the rabbit in the UK comes from France. Like, I used to use a lot of French rabbits. I think it's just cheaper. I think things are just cheaper there.
And maybe, as you say, the inoculations and so on.
Yeah, I know that the rabbit farmers do. I grew up in a regional area, so I worked on a farm for a year, so I've got a little bit of knowledge about how it all goes. I know that rabbit farmers have had hard times with, I don't remember what the name of the disease is now, but there's a disease that rabbits get that it makes their eyes puff up and then they die.
Myxomatosis or something.
That's it, myxomatosis. So they do have a bit of a hard time with that. But also, where I grew up, we all went hunting and we shot rabbits. So I grew up eating rabbit.
Well, that's right.
The only problem with wild rabbit is it's not consistent. You can sometimes can be really amazing, and other times it's really tough. It depends if the rabbits are old or
Yeah.
So farmed rabbit's much more consistent, but I think there's just less of a market for game meats here as well, because wild boar is something that I love. Wild boars are not quite the same in Australia as it is back in Europe, but it's, people just don't, if you do it as a special, it just sort of, some specials like fly out and people, they love it, but wild boar is not something that people go crazy for here.
Even goat. It's not a big seller, is it?
No, it's
interesting.
And if I want to get hold of goat, it's not difficult to get hold of, but I think people just don't go for it though.
Yeah, fascinating. I remember when I lived in France for a year a long time ago, and whenever these friends would invite me, there'd always be 20 people, and at Christmas time there'd be 20 people at Christmas, and they all bought something else, and one of them had done a civet de sanglier, so they'd macerated the wild boar in blood for 3 days and red wine and everything. It's amazing. There was goose, it's just all these things we just don't, it's just not part of our, like what we're used to eating here, I guess, so yeah.
Yeah, it's, I remember, like, I've got family in the south of France, and I went there 3 or 4 times a year throughout my whole childhood. Up until I was, pretty much up until really I moved to Australia actually, and my pronunciation is not as good as yours though. I'm not very good at French, but I remember we used to go to these small restaurants in the middle of nowhere. A lot of them were very average. Like food in France is not that great actually.
No,
there's some amazing restaurants that really they are the reason why France is famous for its food. But in general, most restaurants in France are pretty average.
I agree. But then the product you get in the markets...
Oh, yeah. The meat that you get is amazing. And we used to go, and I remember I just fell in love in this one place with the daube de sanglier. And it was like, whenever we went back home, like, wild boar's not that popular in the UK as well, but you can get it pretty readily anywhere. If you ask the butcher, they'll get it for you. So then that was my request. I always told my mum, just cook that, that's what I want to eat.
I remember hiking when I think it was like the last weekend of hunting season, and number one, we were obviously in the wrong place because I could hear like guns, and then there'd be like the running of. I was thinking, we're either going to get gored by a pig or get shot. But
because they're feisty. Those. Which part of France was that?
So it was down in the south of France, so near Avignon, so sort of in the Luberon Valley and around there.
Yeah.
So yeah.
Yeah, we used to go hiking, and my dad's friend, he used to shoot off up in front and hide in a bush and then make big noises. My dad actually, back in the 70s, ran a company in Turkey taking German tourists hunting wild boar. And because the locals there they were Muslims, so they didn't really eat it. So he used to take all these Germans there. And he heard these sort of big noises and would be sort of like super, protective and start, worrying that one of the pigs is going to attack us. Yeah.
Wow. Yeah. But you, I read that you did a bit of forage. So you grew up in Wales, is it?
I grew up in Wales.
Yeah. So foraging and hunting. Well.
Part
of things.
I grew up I didn't grow up on a farm. It's like a small holding where we had fields that we rented out to other farmers. But I spent a lot of time on farms, and I worked on friends' farms for a bit of pocket money as a kid. I always hunted on our land. My dad was a bit, he's a very outdoorsy person, so he used to build homemade bows and bow and arrows, and we'd go hunting with bows. He used to shoot pigeon, rabbit, and so when you have all this sort of random game meat, most people cook it in a classic way. We were always, and all of our friends who always had loads of game meat, we were always trying to find weird and wonderful ways to do different things with it, like sweet and sour rabbit or Kentucky fried rabbit, stuff like that.
Did it work?
Not really, no.
Oh.
It's better. It's
probably
better
a
with
reason
other stuff. Yeah. Like the rabbit. I think when I did experiments with the rabbit, quite often they were maybe not. They were a bit old, so the rabbit was a bit tough.
Yeah.
But we used to have a lot of venison, and we did try it in many ways. But the thing is, just best to stick to the classics, really. But then we also grew up very close to the coastline, so my dad used to take me. What we call cockling, because we call them cockles, not clams. And we'd go down to the beaches when the tides went out, and we'd go panning for the cockles. And I'm not a fan of it, but there's a delicacy in Wales, especially in my region, called lava bread, which doesn't have anything to do with the name, but it's basically seaweed puree, like pureed seaweed. And we eat it for breakfast with oats and clams, and sometimes bacon.
It's very salty?
Very salty, slimy. My mum makes like sort of oat cakes with it, mixes it with oats and then pan fries it. It doesn't matter for me, no matter what you do to it. I'm not a fan. It's more the texture than anything, because it is like a sort of slime paste.
Oh, it's probably really good for you though, right?
I'm sure it's really good for you. Yeah. I think it's like maybe now like young people these days don't eat it that much, but that was like the hangover breakfast. So you got the full English breakfast, and then in my region, which is southwest Wales, we had cockles and lava bread with bacon for breakfast.
Oh my god, it sounds like it actually encourage you to be sick.
Yeah, I remember my dad had a friend he lived in London. He used to come back to the village once or twice a year, and they'd always have big dinner parties, and then the next morning he's cooking cockles and lava bread, and I was a kid, so it's not like I was hungover, but I'd wake up in the morning and look at them eating that, and I was like, no way. I didn't know what it was like to have a hangover then, but it's not my idea of hangover food. Yeah. Wow.
So it feels like you had a pretty strong connection to food and cooking then from early on. Did you always know you wanted to be a chef?
I did. I was strongly encouraged to not be a chef. My mum is, everyone says that their mum is the best cook in the world, and it's like this sort of nostalgic thing. I'm not. When I say that my mum was a very good cook, it's not that it's me being nostalgic about her cooking. My mum did cooking classes, had a catering company, and I think back then she never worked in a restaurant, because I think 50 years ago, 40 years ago, it wasn't really, women didn't really work in kitchens, but she is really one of the best cooks ever. She, knows all the classic French recipes, always trying new things. So I grew up with very good home-cooked food. When people say, a lot of people hate on British cuisine, and I'd say that maybe in general it might be warranted, but I think that most people haven't tried real British cooking. I think that British food is some of the best food in the world, and I think that when done properly it can rival classic French cooking, because they are very similar. There's a lot of braises, a lot of, it's pretty similar, but maybe less finesse. But so I grew up surrounded by food, always interested in what my mum was doing, and I think a lot of it came from that. Maybe some of the stuff my mum cooked, I didn't appreciate it and I didn't like it, so I was always trying to, she'd go out of the kitchen and I'd be there throwing stuff in the pan to make it more the way that I would want it. And my dad used to do the same, and we used to encourage each other to do it, and my mum used to get so pissed off always when we'd always play around with what she was doing. But from a young age, I probably started cooking when I was around 10.
Wow.
And from a young age, I wanted to be a chef, and then had some family friends who owned restaurants and always said that it's a horrible life, and which back then it was much worse than it is now. And I always wanted to do it, and for me it was chef or military. That was there, because I come from a pretty, both sides of my family are military families, really, and we're the first generation to not go into the military. So I had this sort of, my dad was pushing me towards military. My mum wasn't pushing me towards being a chef, but definitely, she, anything but chefing really was her sort of, but they're just, back then there was a big taboo about chefs doing 90-hour weeks. You didn't get, and it maybe now, it's been a while since I worked in the UK, but chefs in the UK, it's a very poorly paid trade compared to here. So I started chefing when I was about 18.
Yeah.
So pretty much it's the only thing, other than working on a farm, it's the only thing I've ever done. But I only did it because I didn't get into the army. That was I tried to join the army as an officer, because my dad wanted me to go in as an officer, and I didn't get in because I didn't have the grades. So it was all, otherwise I'd go back to school or be a chef.
Yeah.
And I walked into a restaurant, asked for a job as the dishwasher, and that's how I started.
So just in your town?
Yeah.
Yeah.
It was in an Italian restaurant called Compassionata, and I learnt a lot there. It was a fun place to work, and then I did that for about a year, and then I moved to London.
Yeah, wow. And where did you work in London?
I worked in a lot of places in London, but I trained in Le Gavroche. I did a few months at Le Gavroche. I quit when somebody stole all the money in my wallet and my Oyster card, so I had to walk home and I didn't have any money. And I think he stole my phone as well. And I went to the head chef and I raised it, and she basically said, yeah, that happens sometimes. There's nothing we can do about it. And I thought, well, I don't want to work in a place that.
No.
If there is staff there, that we're meant to be a team, and if there's staff there that do that, then I didn't want to work there.
How big was the staff? How many staff were there?
I think I don't remember now. It was a long time ago, but I'm pretty sure that there was around 20 or 30 chefs in the kitchen.
Okay, sort of a lot of. Yeah.
It was a very
Unknown.
very interesting place to work. I'd say that. For me, I was there as a commie, and as a commie, you don't get to see everything that goes on in the kitchen. My job was picking herbs, splitting peas out of the skins. You're talking doing 8 hours of just picking chervil, nothing else. Standing in the cool room so that it doesn't wilt. Yeah. And I would do that for 8 hours and then go home, and that was it. And
how do you learn from that?
Mostly just by watching, because you're doing something that doesn't really require much, so you're there sort of watching what other people are doing. They actually have in Le Gavroche, or they had then anyway, a chef that was working full-time just to make staff food for the whole team. And the chefs there are not particularly helpful. They didn't want to teach me anything. Nobody knew what was going on in other people's sections. In a big kitchen like that, it's understandable. So I would just go and help this chef who's doing the staff food, and then I would look at what other people are doing, and they would sort of explain what they're doing. I wasn't allowed to actually cook anything or get involved. So I did that for 4 months. I did learn a lot, because you learn, maybe you hear the terms and you hear the dishes, and then I'd go home, and I'm a very curious person, so I'll always research and look things up. And I think you just sort of learn like that, because they wouldn't show me how to do it. So then I'd go and try and figure out how to do it, just in case they asked me, and then I can say, yeah, I know how to do that. So yeah, I was there, and then after that I went to work in a place called Salt Yard Group at one of the restaurants called De Hesse, which is on Carnaby Street. It's still there now, but I was there for a good 6 years, where that's a Spanish tapas bar, but they were the first ones to do the sort of elevated tapas, as not really fine dining, but sort of edging towards that style. And the executive chef at the time was a guy called Ben Tish, who's a very good chef, and I learned a lot from him, and stayed there for 6 years. Really good team. Like, those for me were like the best days of chefing, really.
Yeah.
And because the head chef there was Italian, and they weren't very strict on what the food was, so it was Spanish, but we did a lot of Italian stuff, and it was sort of Spanish and Italian. We had a lot of Italian on the menu as well. So that was my sort of first real intro into Italian cooking. And I stayed there for 6 years, and then I went to go and open a place with a chef who's now TikTok famous, called Thomas Straker, who I don't know if you've heard of him. He does all these sort of, he's got this series called All About Butter, where he just does, he's a very, very, very good chef, but he does all these videos on mostly making different compound butters.
Wow.
And he's done, I don't know how many, but I reckon over 200 or 300 videos just about butter.
Yeah, but you have a really good butter here.
Yes, the cacio e pepe butter.
Oh my god, I've never tasted anything like butter.
Really?
Butter as delicious as that.
Yeah.
So that could have been you, TikTok.
Yeah. I think he's done something similar. Maybe I got a bit of inspiration from him. But that butter is, I think, one of the secrets of that butter is the actual butter that we use is Del Boccia butter. So it's made by a guy called Alberto, who is from Venice. And he makes it up in Coburg, because he actually works for Marana, so he sold us the oven. And then I got chatting to him, and anyway, it turns out that he misses the butter that they had in Venice. A lot of Italians, there's that split where Italians always generalise about Italy. Oh, in Italy we don't use butter, but the thing is, in the south they don't, but in the north they use just as much as the French do.
Yeah.
And anyway, Alberto was going on about how he loves and he misses the butter that he grew up with in Venice, and he wanted to make something similar to that here. So he gets some milk from Gippsland, and he churns the butter himself.
I would have thought it would be the milk that made it different, but is it the technique as well?
I think the milk is one of the biggest. I think that when, especially restaurants, use the brand West Gold and all these sort of, they're these big brands, and the quality of the butter, it does the job, but it's not amazing, and it's.
But I mean, the butter in Italy, I would have thought that would have been the difference. But maybe
I think it's a bit. People put additives into butter here. I think sometimes maybe there's veg oil and other things. I'm not sure, but I think he's bought an old Italian that he's brought over from Italy, an old Italian butter churn, and he's restored it. It's a sort of vintage one, and then I think I wouldn't be able to tell you where he gets the milk from exactly, but I know that it's a very good quality cream that he's getting from Gippsland, and the butter is really good. It is really delicious. So I think that's the fact that mixed with a really good quality pecorino, you can't really go wrong. It's just two great ingredients.
so good. So you were going to go and have a restaurant with this guy, but you...
No, well, so there's an Argentinian restaurant in Buenos Aires called Casa Cruz, and the owner of that opened a place in London, and Thomas Straker was the head chef. So I went and I did the opening there with him as a junior sous chef there, and I did that for about a year, but it wasn't my. In the end, I went back to Salt Yard Group just because I had such a great time there. It wasn't really my. That was ultra fine dining, we always every night was like diplomats and celebrities, and it was. The thing is, the owner wanted to cater to everyone's wants and needs, and so I was there in charge of the pastry section, and I was there from 7 a.m. until 3 a.m. just in case all the guys were staying there drinking after the restaurant closed at 12, but all the guests would stay till 2, 3 having a party, and I had to stay just in case any of them wanted desserts. And then working from 7 a.m. until 3 a.m. in the morning, and then there's no tube at that point in London, so an hour bus home, go to sleep, and then be back in work at 7 a.m.
Yeah, wow.
Do that, 5 days a week in a row was,
unsustainable.
It was unsustainable, but at the same time, if I loved what I was doing, then I would have kept going. But pastry's not my. I like pastry, but it's not my forte. It's not what I want to do all the time. So I didn't really have much satisfaction doing it. And I went back to Salt Yard Group, did a stint at Merchant's Tavern, which is Angela Hartnett's restaurant, or was. It's closed down now. She was Gordon Ramsay's sous chef. And that was a sort of fine dining, let's say. Pub food doesn't do it justice, but it was like modern British. The idea was that it was meant to be a sort of fine dining pub. Beautiful restaurant, great food. I think they did have a star, and then they lost it. And then I stayed there until I came to Australia.
And why did you come here?
I'd been in London for 10 years, and for me, London's where I spent pretty much my whole adult life. And for me, that's sort of real home. But it's so expensive. It was really expensive. I got job satisfaction, but then you're living paycheck to paycheck. And I just sort of needed a change of scene. The idea was to come here as a holiday, not, do a working holiday visa and maybe just do something new for a year and go back. And I came and actually I arrived here 12 hours before they closed the border for COVID.
So you knew.
I came before that, but just like as a holiday, and then I decided that I liked it here, and I left. I went travelling around Asia for a couple of months, and then when I heard the borders were closing, I was like, right, I better get back.
Wow.
So I arrived 12 hours before the borders closed, and then jumped into however many months or years of lockdowns it was.
Yeah.
But I just figured it would be better to stay here than go back.
Then?
I didn't really. No. I did a stint at a place in Port Melbourne because it was the only place that got back to me and offered me a job, and not a great place. I didn't really enjoy it. And then as soon as the next lockdown happened, they let everyone go anyway. But I just burnt through my savings and then waited for it to end, really.
Yeah.
Then I went up to Daylesford. Then I did 2 years in Daylesford, working with a friend up there, which was interesting. It was fun, but I ended up coming back to Melbourne. Yeah.
Well, I don't know what people were doing before St Kilda opened, because it's so busy, especially at the weekend, Friday, Saturday, Sunday.
It is.
So it's like, isn't it crazy when a place opens and then it's so busy? You think, well, where were they going before?
I know. Yeah, it's I think we've been really lucky. Like, it's a great location. We had a lot of sort of there was a lot of buzz around it when it opened up, and then we've just been flat out. I think we had to slow it down a bit at the beginning because usually when you go into a new restaurant, if you're taking over one that was already there before, usually you'd assume that everything is, the way that it should be. But what we realised is that it wasn't enough space for us to keep all the prep. So we just had to slow it down a bit so that we could offer, a product of the quality that we really, are happy to give. But, we've even been busy midweek, which for... I've spoken to locals who said that's not really, most places are not busy midweek here.
It's just the perfect, for me, anywhere where you can sit and see the sea and palm trees, pretty amazing, I think,
It is, yeah. It's a nice view when you're on break.
So,
we did joke when we opened. We were like, oh yeah, when you go on lunch break, you can run down to the beach and have a swim.
You never do.
No, I don't think anyone ever has.
No.
But it's a nice idea.
So you're obviously quite drawn to Italian food and making pasta. It feels like, sounds like you're surrounded by lots of Italians.
I think I'm the only, in the kitchens anyway, I am the only one that's not Italian in the whole group.
How does that go?
It's interesting. I guess I've always worked with. There's a lot of Italians in London, and I've always worked with Italians. So for me, it just sort of actually feels pretty normal because even in London, it's not like you go to UK and there's loads of British chefs working in the restaurants. Most of the places I worked in the UK, I was one of the only British chefs there.
Yeah.
So it just feels much the same for me.
Do you speak in Italian?
I wouldn't go out and say that I speak Italian, but I definitely understand. I'd say 50-60% when people are talking, especially if it's got anything to do with food or the kitchen or work in general. I can. Sometimes I'll sit in on meetings and everyone just starts talking in Italian, and then after about 5 minutes they're like, "Oh, sorry, Tom, we forgot you're here."
Yeah.
And it was all right because I actually did understand what they were talking about. But it's one thing to understand and another thing to speak.
Absolutely.
But I reckon give it another year, and I wouldn't be surprised if I'm in there speaking Italian with them as well.
Well, necessity is a great teacher. I think you need to do
but that's the other thing is that all these guys need to learn English. So they've got to do it for their visas. So
okay.
I'm also a bit of an English teacher for all the guys in the kitchen because they stay in their own little world of Italians and they never learn. So I try and correct them and help them out with that.
Yeah.
It would be hard for them if I started speaking Italian.
Because I had a conversation with Greg Feck out at Marnong Estate, and he did have, how can I forget the name of it? Oh, this is escaped me. In Hawthorne, a Venetian restaurant, which was hugely successful. And he's a Kiwi, as am I, and I said it's interesting, he's obviously been really drawn to Italian food. How do we go with authenticity, with, do Italians take you seriously? And he said he feels like he was an Italian born into a Kiwi body. But, I'm not questioning anyone's, right to do pasta, but it is interesting when you're in a kitchen full of
I think
Italians. Do they...
I think you can... I think that you have a lot to prove when you're not Italian to the rest of the guys who are, and I think that if it was just any old chef who jumped into it, like I said earlier, I'm a very curious person. So actually, before working at Doc, there's a lot of fresh pasta in French restaurants as well. It's like, and I'd say that I'm more trained in French cooking than I am in Italian. But I think that once you've got the basics in French, it's pretty easy to learn anything. At home, I mostly cook Asian food. My partner is Indonesian Chinese, so we eat. She gets annoyed when I cook too many Western dishes, and she prefers Asian. So, but once you've got a grounding in French, I think it's pretty easy to get a grasp on everything else if you actually put yourself out there to learn. I'm always looking for recipes. I'm always reading in my spare time. If I'm on a train going somewhere, if I'm in an Uber, if I'm just sitting and I've got a free 5 minutes, most people would be watching, TikTok reels or whatever. Usually I'm there reading recipes or just reading, going down sort of wormholes of reading about a certain technique, and then through that I'll go to another one. And I think, especially when I started here at Dock, I kind of had a lot to prove to the Italians in there that I actually knew, because, so this Welsh guy's going to come and tell us how to cook Italian food. But I think once you actually start, and they start shooting out dishes or, different types of pastas, and you know it, and then you shoot some back and they don't know them, then they say, okay, well, maybe this guy knows what he's talking about.
Yeah.
They quite often joke that I know more about Italian food than they do.
Yeah.
But I think it's just, if you're passionate about something, then, and you're curious and you want to learn, then you might need to prove to the rest of the guys that you know what you're doing. But, it's been pretty easy, really, fitting in with a group of Italians, and I haven't had any issues really standing in there with people saying, "Oh, you're not Italian, you don't know what you're doing." But I think the same goes for all cooking, because more with French cooking, you get a lot of chefs who, some of the best, let's say, French chefs in the world are not actually French. They're guys that learned French cooking and then mastered it.
Absolutely, that's quite true. That's right. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. So with all that in mind, then, what would your advice be to a young person starting out their journey as a chef?
So, I would say, if you're passionate about it, just really just keep learning. Don't stop learning. I'm still learning now. I've been working in restaurants close to 15 years, and I'm learning new things every day. Never think that you already know everything, because you don't know. In the grand scheme of things, you don't know anything. But I'd say that it's a bit of a taboo now, because chefs have always been treated quite badly by employers in terms of long hours for really low pay. But it's not that way anymore. The thing is that because chefs get paid quite a lot, people are not going to invest time to teach people when they don't have to. Now it's like, do your job and go home. So you lose out on a lot of I'd say that a lot of the older chefs who are doing 80 hours a week, you're doing double the hours that somebody else is, so that's double the experience you're getting in the same amount of time. Now, I'm not saying that people should be treated badly or get paid less, but if you really want to learn, you've got to put yourself forward and say, for years, I didn't take holiday to go on holiday. I would request a week off, and then I'd go and work in another restaurant for free, just so that I can learn what they're doing. Now, if you're not that passionate about cooking and you're doing it for money, then you don't need to do that. But if you do really want to be good at it and you want to learn as much as you can, you're not going to just learn if you're looking at the clock and you're coming and you're clocking your 40 hours and then going home. Yeah. Because it will take you so much longer to learn than the other guys in the kitchen who are older than you did. And I think a lot of people don't think about it that way, because everyone looks back and says, I did so much. I did 80-hour weeks and I didn't get paid for it. But you do get a lot out of it if you're trying to take something positive from it. You essentially, it's like doing, well, it is an apprenticeship. You're getting paid, but you're not having to pay any school tuition. So maybe that's the difference.
That's right. And I guess, what does that mean for the next generation coming through, if there's less available time for teaching and so on, if you're not doing? I
think that it's because as employers, it's a bit of a grey area to tell people to come to work and not get paid for it. Yeah. But I think what it means is that for the whole industry, it means that we get, and you see it already. You've got younger chefs who are stepping into positions that they're not qualified for. A lot of people chasing a bigger paycheck. I always was of the opinion that I'd rather get paid less and try and learn everything than jump up, because you see people who try to rise up too fast. There's nothing wrong with just stepping back a bit and learning as much as you can, and then just letting it grow organically, rather than, you know, the saying, if you don't ask, you don't get. So then everyone's always asking for pay rises, and I think the more money and more responsibility you get, the less chance you've got to learn.
Yeah.
So I think what it means for a lot of chefs is that they've got to put. I was sort of forced to learn, but they've got to put a lot more effort themselves to actually go out and learn, and it means that you've got to do a lot of learning in your free time rather than, you know, coming to work and learning there.
Yeah. Right. Thank you.
That's
Thanks
all
so
right.
much for your time.
At the end, it was
It's like the setup, the noise of setup.
I don't even know what that is. It's
It sounds heavy.
yeah.
Anyway, thank you so much for your
That's all right.
time.
Conversation with a chef with Tom Jones-Davies at Dock in St Kilda. If you liked what you heard, you can check out all the goodness on their Instagram at I can't even say it, gastronomia, which is DOC_GASTRONOMIA. You try saying it yourself. If you'd like to hear more stories from other chefs, I'm on Instagram at Conversation with a Chef. You can read the chat and become a subscriber at www.conversationwithachef.com. I would absolutely love it if you told a friend about my chats, and of course you can follow me on Apple and Spotify podcasts. Once again, thanks so much for listening. Have a great day and bon appetit.